So one way that helps us see the disadvantages of samsara and thus cultivate the aspiration for liberation is to contemplate the disappointment that we continually experience in our lives. So take a few minutes and just look at your life and think of especially the big disappointments where you thought things were going to turn out one way and boy, they turned out a very different way. And then realize that all those disappointments are just part of being a being in samsara. And they occur first because conditions are constantly changing and we can't control them. And second, our minds are constantly changing. So what we like one day displeases us the next. So these are qualities of samsara that are not going to go away. It's not a question of, oh, that was a bad choice, I'll do it better next time. This is what samsara is. Think about that and develop a longing to be free of samsara. And then consider that this is also the plight of each and every living being, and want them to be free of it also. And to make that happen, generate the intention to become a Buddha so that you can more actively engage in effective means to benefit others. Okay. So people don't always like to think about those things. Much nicer to think about light and love and bliss. But the point is, thinking about light and love and bliss doesn't lead us to the realizations that we need to have to be free of samsara. Okay? So that's why the Buddha taught the Four Truths, and especially, understanding true dukkha and the true origins of dukkha are very, very important. And to look at our ordinary way of viewing things and to begin to question it, instead of just accepting our ordinary, how we see things, what we think they are, to begin to really actively question whether our view is correct. And to think of all the things that you've done in your life where you thought, wow, this is going to be fantastic. You had that? This is going to be fantastic. So, whatever it is, it could be a sport, it could be a career, it could be a relationship, it could be, any number of things. I thought, wow, this is going to bring me real happiness. And then, are you still doing any of those things that you thought would bring you really real happiness in the past? Are you still involved with any of them? If you were, you wouldn't be here. You would still be doing those things. Yeah. So it's interesting to see, we start things, wow. And then, and then to see, okay, conditions change. Yeah. And we can't control all the conditions. But when we go into things, we don't think conditions change. We think it's going to always stay this way. And since our motivation for making so many of those decisions is my happiness now, then when we go into things and we don't get the continuous happiness that we thought we'd get, then we feel disappointment or even betrayal. Okay? And whereas, sometimes people come into Dharma too with that same thing. Now, Dharma's it. This is going to be it. I'm going to be a monastic and live happily ever after because all my problems are going to be outside the monastery. No. But the difference is when you become a monastic, your motivation isn't my happiness now. Your motivation should be, one of I want to progress along the path and I want to be a benefit to others. And so that to progress along the path and to benefit others, you're going to go through ups and downs. It's not going to be smooth sailing. Yeah? And so you know that going in, you accept that, but you have a long-term purpose. Yeah? And that long-term purpose is something that is very inspiring to you, so that even if you encounter difficulties, the wish to attain awakening, the wish to be able to benefit others is so strong that the temporary, disappointment and so on doesn't derail you from what you're doing. Yeah. So that motivation's got to be really strong because, life is like this, isn't it? Yeah. And, sometimes we have people come here, it's going to be a wonderful thing. And then they're here a few weeks and, and it doesn't meet their expectations and they're off. Yeah. Even though this was going to be the cure-all for everything. but you can see, why, how our mind works. All of this is a study of the mind and how our mind tricks and deceives us, and how especially that self-centered motivation of my happiness now just brings us so many problems, and blinds us to the reality of the situation. So that's one factor in the disappointment. And then the second one is to really look and, see how fickle our minds are. Yeah, one day, oh, this is wonderful. And the next day, it's like, ugh. And, we're like really emotional yo-yos. So even if the situation stays more or less stable, because our mind is dissatisfied and we're always grasping for something new that is more amusing, that is better, then, even the external situation isn't going up and down. Our mind is, and we still have the same experience of like, oh, So again, this is why, having that long-term motivation is so important, and having the determination that when you're unhappy, and when you're dissatisfied, when things aren't going the way you want, to, instead of blaming the external circumstance, but to look inside and see what's going on in my mind. How am I interpreting things? What am I expecting? And then change that mindset. So if we're expecting everything out in the outside to be stable, if we're expecting our mind to be stable, okay. So the thing is, the more that we are in touch with reality, and I'm just talking conventional, quote, quote, conventional mistaken reality, the more we're in touch with that, then the smoother our lives will be. And then, of course, the more we can understand ultimate reality, then really our lives get even much better. Okay? But it's always an inward process of, it's a study of the mind. And that's why His Holiness says the best laboratory, is not at, UC Berkeley. The best laboratory is in here. Okay? So, to really use every situation as a way to study our own mind. And knowing that we can transform our mind, and we have the tools to do that. Did you enjoy revisiting all your disappointments? When I look at my disappointments, it's like, there were red flags and I just totally ignored them. Totally ignored. So that's my problem, isn't it? If there's red flags and I just ignore them, I can't blame somebody else. I think when you look at your disappointments, do some of them revolve around other people not being what you thought they were? Yeah. What? All of them. Yeah, darn, I thought these people were like this, and they turned out to be like that. But, maybe our initial opinion was wrong. What? I had a wrong opinion? We did. Okay. So, Ratapala, just told his father to throw all the wealth into the Ganges River, and also told his wives that, all their beauty and their makeup and everything like that was just covering up basically the garbage dump of the body. Okay. So I'm sure they all loved him very much for speaking the truth, Okay, and so then he said that, and they gave him lunch, and then he told them that. How rude. But he spoke the truth for their benefit. Okay, then he went to King Maravya's Migachira garden to do his walking and sitting meditation. So then, next scene, then King Kauravya addressed his gamekeeper thus: "Good gamekeeper, tidy up the Migachira garden so that we may go to the pleasure garden to see a pleasing spot." So the king wants to go out and have a good time. "Yes, sire," the gamekeeper said. Now while he was tidying up the Migachira garden, the gamekeeper saw the Venerable Ratapala seated at the root of a tree for the day's abiding. When he saw him, he went to King Kauravya and told him, "Sire, the Migachira garden has been tidied up. The clansman Ratapala is there, the son of the leading clan in this same Tulakotita, of whom you have always spoken highly. He is seated at the root of a tree for the day's abiding." So the son of the foremost famous citizen of the town who has a good reputation, his son is in your garden meditating. Then, good Migava, enough of now the king is speaking, enough of the pleasure garden for today. Now we shall go to pay respects to the master Ratapala. So the king has some faith. He wants to pay respects and meet Ratapala. Then saying, "Give away all the food that has been prepared there." King Kauravya had a number of state carriages prepared, and mounting one of them, accompanied by the other carriages, he drove out from Tulakotita with the full pomp of royalty to see the Venerable Ratapala. Can you imagine that? There's this monk sitting in his rag robes in the forest, and the king comes, with all this pomp and circumstance, like an entourage of BMWs, coming there. It's so, the contrast is so startling. Okay. He drove thus as far as the road was passable for carriages, and then he dismounted from his carriage and went forward on foot with a following of the most eminent officials to where the Venerable Ratapala was. He exchanged greetings with the Venerable Ratapala, and when this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he stood at one side and said, "Here is an elephant rug. Let Master Ratapala be seated on it." So he's offering him something high class. Yeah. And Ratapala says, "There is no need, great king. Sit down. I am sitting on my own mat." So he declined. King Kauravya sat down on a seat made ready and said, "Master Ratapala, there are 4 kinds of loss. Before they have undergone these 4 kinds of loss, some people here shave off their hair and beards, put on the yellow robe, and go forth from the home life into homelessness. What are the four? They are the loss through aging, the loss through sickness, the loss of wealth, and the loss of relatives. So because they have gone through these four losses. Okay, so loss of aging. Yeah, some of us, may not feel that so much. Some of us are feeling it. Okay, loss through sickness, that's kind of gone on the whole life. But again, as you get older, usually more sickness. Loss of wealth. Okay, that happens throughout life, but the longer you live, the more time you have to lose it. And loss of relatives. Again, when you're young, you don't know so many people. As you start getting older, more and more people start dying. Yeah. And so this is the king still speaking. And what is the loss through aging? Here, Master Ratapala, someone is old, aged, burdened with years, advanced in life, come to the last stage. He considers thus, I am old, aged, burdened with years, advanced in life, come to the last stage. It is no longer easy for me to acquire unacquired wealth, or to augment wealth already acquired. Suppose I shave off my hair and beard, put on the yellow robe, and go forth from the home life into homelessness. Because he has undergone that loss through aging, he shaves off his head and beard, puts on the yellow robe, and goes forth from home life into homelessness. This is called loss through aging. But Master Ratapala is now still young, a black-haired young man endowed with the blessings of youth, in the prime of life. Master Ratapala has not undergone any loss through aging. What has he known or seen that he has gone forth from the home life into homelessness? Okay, so in ancient Indian culture, the idea was, and now too to some extent, is you have different responsibilities in your life. When you're young, to get an education, then to have a family, gain wealth, and when you've done all of that, then you can go off and do spiritual things, of course, if you're still alive and healthy enough to do it. Okay, because you're starting to age and you've kind of done everything, and so what's remaining is the spirituality, also because you're approaching death. Okay, now it's good. It's better late than never, isn't it? Yeah. But if you know the Dharma when you're young, to put off serious practice until you're old, saying, I want to enjoy things now, and then when I get old, I'll do more practice. Yeah, that's kind of dicey because you're not sure you're going to live that long. And you're not sure, even if you are alive, that, you'll have the physical and mental wherewithal to do serious practice. Okay. But here's, Ratapala, who hasn't experienced that loss through age, and, yet he renounced. So the king is quite puzzled. What's going on here? Oh, and I might add here, in Chinese monasteries, they often have an age limit, and it varies from monastery to monastery. And if you're older than that age limit, then you can't ordain. And I know Thich Nhat Hanh's group also has quite a young age cutoff for ordination, in their 20s sometime, because they have so many people. So that's also something to consider. The Tibetans don't seem to do that. The Tibetans have the idea that if somebody can ordain even for one day in this degenerate age, it's more virtue than being ordained your entire life at the time of the Buddha. So there's different views in different places. The Abbey has a cutoff time of 50 years. 50 years old. Okay, and the king continues. What is loss through sickness? Here, Master Ratapala, someone is afflicted, suffering, and gravely ill. He considers thus, I am afflicted, suffering, and gravely ill. It is no longer easy for me to acquire unacquired wealth. And the same thing, unacquired wealth, or to augment wealth already acquired. Suppose I shave off my head and beard, put on the yellow robe, and go forth from the home life into homelessness. Because he has undergone that loss through sickness, he shaves off his head and beard, puts on the yellow robe, and goes forth from home life into homelessness. This is called loss through sickness. But Master Ratnapala is now free from illness and affliction. He possesses good digestion that is neither too cool nor too warm, but medium. Master Ratnapala has not undergone any loss through sickness. What has he known or seen that he has gone forth from the home life into the homelessness? Okay, so again, and it's true, lots of people, they fall ill, then when they recover, they want to ordain. And here the king's saying, you haven't experienced that suffering, so what's going on? And what is loss of wealth, says the king. Here, Master Ratapala, someone is rich, of great wealth, of great possessions. Gradually his wealth dwindles away. Okay? They cut off your Medicare, they cut off your Social Security, they, invest your, 401k incorrectly, and the stock market goes down, and there you are. Yeah. When I was in Russia in 1996, I had been there many years before that. But, during the Soviet times, things were very hard, but everybody had a place to live. Then after Perestroika, the whole society changed, and there were a lot of old people begging in the subways. And I was thinking how sad that was, because they had gone through so much suffering during the Stalin's reign, and the collectivization and everything. And then at their old age, then the whole system changed, and they wound up begging in the subway, and they're old. And that this kind of thing happens, yeah. So gradually his wealth dwindles away. He considers thus, formerly I was rich, of great wealth, of great possessions. Gradually my wealth has dwindled away. It is no longer easy for me to acquire unacquired wealth. And so on. The whole thing of, augmenting one's wealth. And suppose I decided to shave off my head and beard and become a monastic. Okay, so I'm not reading all the repetitions. Because he has undergone that loss of wealth, then he does go forth, he shaves his face and beard, goes forth from home into homelessness. Yeah, so this is called loss of wealth. But Master Ratapala is the son of the leading clan in this same Tulakotita. Master Ratapala has not undergone any loss of wealth. What has he known or seen or heard that he has gone forth from the home life into the homeless life? And to the contrary, his father had piled up that huge bit of gold coins and gold bullion and said, "This is only part of your inheritance," and he turned that away. And the king continues, and what is the loss of relatives? Here, Master Ratapala, someone has many friends and companions, kinsmen and relatives. Okay, so the idea is you have so many family members, you feel so secure as a member of the family, you always have people to go out with and have fun with, there's always people supporting you and behind you that you know. But gradually these relatives of his dwindle away. He considers thus, formerly I had many friends and companions, kinsmen and relatives. Gradually those relatives of mine have dwindled away. It is no longer easy for me to acquire unacquired wealth or augment the wealth that I already have. So suppose I shaved off my hair and beard and became a monastic, went from home life into homelessness. Okay, because he has undergone that loss of relatives, then he, I'm not repeating it, does all of that, and he goes forth from the home life into homelessness. This is called loss of relatives. But Master Ratapala has many friends and companions, kinsmen and relatives, in this same Tulakatita. Master Ratapala has not undergone any loss of relatives. What has he known or seen or heard that he has gone forth from the home life into homelessness? Master Ratapala, there are these 4 kinds of loss. Because they have undergone these 4 kinds of loss, some people here shave off their hair and beard, put on the yellow robe, and go forth from home life into homelessness. Master Ratapala has not undergone any of these. What has he known or seen that he has gone forth from the home life into homelessness? So the king is interested and he's asking in a respectful way. You know, most of us probably get the thing of like, what in the world are you thinking that you're doing this? Okay. Hopefully your family doesn't react that way. That's the way my family reacted. You know, so there's different kinds of ways, but people are always wanting to know why in the world. Okay. I remember when I was in Dharamsala and I went down to the bazaar to buy cloth for robes before I was ordaining. And the guy in the cloth store said, "You're so pretty." I wasn't, but he said, "You're so pretty. It's such a waste that you want to ordain." You know, as if I were, you know, kind of some commodity that, you know, some husband could enjoy. I mean, he meant well. It was sweet, but yeah. Great king. So here's Ratapala talking. Great king, there are 4 summaries of the Dharma that have been taught by the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully enlightened. Knowing and seeing and hearing them, I went forth from the home life into homelessness. What are the 4? So first, life in any world is unstable. It is swept away, you know, towards aging and death. This is the first summary of the Dharma taught by the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened. Knowing and seeing and hearing this, I went forth from the home life into homelessness. Yeah, so the whole world is unstable. And it's true, isn't it? Then the second, life in any world has no shelter and no protector. This is the second summary of the Dharma taught by the Blessed One who knows and sees. And so that's what made him go forth. Okay, so in the world there is no shelter or protector. Yeah, we are constantly taking refuge and looking for shelter and a protector because we don't want misery. Yeah, and so we look all around us for refuge, you know. And so some people take refuge in their job. You know, if I work hard and I'm successful, then I can feel good about myself. You know, some people take refuge in money. If I have a lot of savings, then my life will be secure. Yeah, some people take refuge in relationships. If I have a partner and I have a family, then there's always people to support me. Yeah. So we take refuge. Lama Yeshe used to say, we're always taking refuge. So the whole idea of taking refuge is not a foreign one to us. We're doing it all the time, except we take refuge in the wrong things. Okay? Because, and there's a beautiful passage in one of the sutras, I can't remember where it is, where the Buddha is talking about his own experience, and he's saying, this is about who he was before he renounced and attained awakening, where he was saying, I'm a living being full of afflictions, tossed around by karma, and I'm going to get in a relationship with other living beings who are full of afflictions and tossed around with karma. And what use is that going to be? Yeah? And yet this is what our whole society is based on, because that's all people know. Our whole society is based on external things, money, status, fame, relatives, a good time. We're so outward directed towards, seeking a solution from our suffering. And yet, the only real solution from dukkha is to purify our mind and gain the realizations and cut off the ignorance, anger, and attachment. That's the only real protection. But most people in this world don't have the karma to even hear of the Dharma. Or even they hear of it, they don't believe it. Or even they believe it, they're too distracted by other things. And, this is where you look around and you see what an incredible tragedy is going on. Especially with other human beings who have a human intelligence. And yet, in terms of Dharma intelligence, they're kind of like where the kiddies are at. Yeah. And then 3, life in any world has nothing of its own. One has to leave all and pass on. Okay, so again, this is the third summary of the Dharma taught by the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened. Knowing and seeing this, I went forth from the home life into homelessness. Okay, so life in any world has nothing as its own. One has to leave all and pass on. So we work very hard in our life, and we all have different things that we're attached to. And sometimes we pride ourselves on not being attached to the things that other people are attached to. But we totally are oblivious to the things we're attached to until we don't have them. And then we become quite unhappy. Okay? But everything, we work hard in this life, to do what? Well, to collect material wherewithal so we can be financially secure in an insecure world. Yeah? To have family and relatives so that if we ever, not if, but when we get sick, there are people around us to take care of us. And when we're bored, there's people to comfort us. And when we go through difficulties, there's people to have, empathize with us. Yeah, we work very hard to get a certain status. Yeah, thinking, if I have a status in, whatever area we are, it could be our career, it could be hobbies, but if I have certain prominence and other people know about me and they respect me and they honor me, then I'll be secure. I'll know my life was meaningful and things are good because people think well of me and they praise me and honor me. Yeah. Or, if I put all my energy into singing or playing the cello or doing high jumping or, whatever it is, then, I will become famous and well known, and I will give delight, musical delight, by my sports shows and entertainment galas to society, and I will be famous and people will love me, and that will make my life good. When I die, people will miss me and they'll cry, and that thought gives us some kind of solace. So we work very hard to not only get the wealth, the money, and so forth, but to create a person that we think we are. To create an ego identity, basically, and get very attached to that ego identity, and not realizing that our whole ego identity is something fabricated based on our relationship to everybody else in society. You can't be famous unless there's other people around you who think that you're good at something. Yeah. Absent those people, you can do your song and dance and nobody blinks. Yeah. And so where's your whole feeling of self-wealth then? Self-worth, not self-wealth, self-worth. Yeah. If nobody is looking at you with awe and saying, oh, how much you've done, or what a fantastic Dharma practitioner you are, and look how high you've risen in the ranks, and, or whatever it is. Okay? And the thing is, when we die, all of that is it's like, a bubble gum bubble, it pops, and none of it can you take with you. Absolutely none of it. So our looks, our attractiveness, our physical athleticism, is that a word? Our wealth, our fame, whatever it is, none of that comes with us. So the more we're attached to that stuff, and the more we think who I am is dependent on that, and create that ego identity that we're attached to, then at the time of death, when we separate from all of it, our mind is completely lost. Completely lost. And I think that's why they say the bardo, the intermediate stage, can be very confusing. Whereas if you have strong refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and you have strong refuge in bodhicitta and in wisdom, and you turn your mind towards those things, then even when your whole external world and your ego identity collapses, there's something you can rely on, your inner wisdom and your inner virtue. Okay, then the fourth, life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, the slave of craving. Okay, this is the fourth summary of the Dharma taught by the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened. Knowing and seeing and hearing this, I went forth from the home life into homelessness. Okay, so he's saying here, life in any world, anywhere in samsara, even you have the life of the person you are most jealous of. Think in the world of who you are jealous of, who you wish you had their life, either their external life or maybe their body or their mental state, whatever thing you have, there's always dissatisfaction. Yeah. You always feel a sense of incompleteness. There's always craving for more and better, more and better. Okay? And we become a slave of that craving. So what we crave for in our youth is not what we crave for when we get older. We crave for new things when we get older. That's called maturation. Yeah? That you give up the toys of a 5-year-old and you adopt the toys of a 25-year-old. They're still toys. But that's called maturing. Okay, are you getting what I'm saying? And, and then after another 10 years or 20 years, then your toys at age 25 are boring. Well, we don't even have to wait a decade or two, wait next year. Then they have new things that you can do and new things you can become. And I read about this man who turned 100 years old, and what he did to celebrate was skydive. Yeah? So, you go through your whole life and you're always looking for the next, adrenaline rush. Yeah, so there you are, I guess, standing at the edge, looking down, and you have to leave your cane behind, or maybe, you squash it into something small and stick it in. And then you jump. Yeah, and you go, wee! Ah! Okay, and then they write you up in the newspaper. And all these people are going, oh, isn't that marvelous? This 100-year-old man is so full of life that he celebrated his birthday. He jumped out of a plane. And then you feel, yes, I'm such a good example for all those people who are 100 years old. I'll do it when I'm 101 too. Yeah. And and then, yeah. So, Great King, these are the 4 summaries of the Dharma that have been taught by the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened. Knowing and seeing and hearing them, I went forth from the home life into homelessness. Master Ratapala said, life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. How should the meaning of that statement be understood? What do you think, Great King? When you were 20 or 25 years old, were you an expert rider of elephants, an expert horseman, an expert charioteer, an expert archer, an expert swordsman, strong in thighs and arms, sturdy, capable in battle? Okay, and the king says, when I was 20 or 25 years old, Master Ratapala, I was an expert rider of elephants, an expert horseman, an expert charioteer, an expert archer, an expert swordsman, strong in thighs and arms, sturdy, capable in battle. Sometimes I wonder if I had supernormal power then. I did not see anyone who could equal me in strength. And the Ratapala says, what do you think, Great King? Are you now as strong in thighs and arms, as sturdy and as capable in battle? No, Master Ratapala. Now I am old, ages, burdened with years. Yeah, I have, what's it called? Yeah! Alzheimer's! Yeah. Okay. okay, now I have Alzheimer's, advanced in life, come to the last stage. My years have turned 80. He's done well. Sometimes I mean to put my foot here, and I put my foot somewhere else. Come, great king, it was on account of this that the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened, said, life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. And when I knew and saw and heard this, I went forth from home life into homelessness. So he didn't have to wait until he got to be 80 years old to learn from his own experience. He was able to see it in the lives of the people around him and know that truth. You know, even when Ratapala was quite young. It is wonderful, Master Ratapala. It is marvelous how well that has been expressed by the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened. Life in any world is unstable. It is swept away. Master Ratapala, there exist in this court elephant troops, cavalry, and chariot troops, and infantry, which will serve to subdue any threats to us. Now, Master Ratapala said, life in any world has no shelter and no protector. How should the meaning of this statement be understood? Okay, so we just put more money into building up our military. We want to have a big military parade in Washington, D.C., yeah, we can bomb the whole world out of existence if we want to. Everybody's afraid of us, except Kim Jong-un in Iran, and half your citizenry. You know, but we have all the protection we need, so what are you saying? You know, life in any world has no shelter and protector. No, this is, yeah, that's the king saying that. And then Ratapala says, what do you think, great king? Do you have any chronic ailments? Oi! Oi, do I have chronic ailments? I have a chronic wind ailment, Ratapala. Sometimes my friends and companions, kinsmen and relatives stand around me thinking, now King Karavya is about to die. Now King Karavya is about to die. And that's even when I can move. I hurt so much when I move, Ratapala. What do you think, great king? Can you command your friends and companions, your kinsmen and relatives? Come, my good friends and companions, my kinsmen and relatives, all of you present, share this painful feeling so that I may feel less pain. Or do you have to feel that pain yourself alone? The king says, I cannot command my friends and companions, my kinsmen and relatives thus, Master Ratapala. I have to feel that pain alone. Great king, it was on account of this that the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened, said life in any world has no shelter and no protector. So nobody else can take our pain away from us, no matter how much they love us. And when I knew and saw and heard this, I went forth from the home life into homelessness. It is wonderful, Master Ratapala. It is marvelous how well that has been expressed by the Blessed One. And so on. So praising the Buddha. Then Master Ratapala, the king says to Master Ratapala, there exists in this court abundant gold coins and bullion stored away in vaults and depositories. Yeah. You have it all stored away. You don't use it. You don't see it. What good is it to you? You know you have it. But all it is a bunch of rocks that you have. You know, I mean, that's all gold is. It's, you know, rock. It's from the earth, you know. So it's rocks of some sort. in a vault, and you think you have protection. Nowadays, we used to have money in our hands and say, oh, I have, these $20 bills, I have $100 bills. These are going to protect me. Now, no gold standard. We don't even have the gold anywhere. We don't even have the money anywhere. All you have is a little plastic card. Yeah? And we're going into a stage where we don't even need plastic cards, where you'll be able to type something into somebody else's phone and immediately it gets withdrawn from your account. Yeah, so very convenient. But there's nothing there. The whole thing is made up by our human mind. Our whole economy and commerce system is totally fabricated. And then we get really upset when the economy goes up and down. Like you own stock and you say, oh, I'm so wealthy, I own stock. Where's that stock? Where's that stock? There's no stock. It's just we made up this idea of stock and we made up this idea of money from it. And then we made up the idea of feeling rich because somebody said you have stock. But where are you going to show your stock? Somebody comes and says, oh, I heard you just got stock. Show me your stock. What are you going to show them, You don't even have everything. Maybe once a quarter they send you a slip of paper. But even that slip of paper isn't stock, is it? And the whole thing's fantasy made up. It functions, kind of, as an economic system. But when you really look at what the economic system is, you see it's just, we made something up and then suffer according to it. Okay. So there's abundant gold and coins and bullion stored away in vaults and depositories. Now, Master Ratapala said, life in any world has nothing of its own. One has to leave all and pass on. How should the meaning of that statement be understood? What do you think, great king? You now enjoy yourself, provided and endowed with the 5 chords of sense pleasure. But will you be able to have it of the life to come? So can you take it with you? Let me likewise enjoy myself, provided and endowed with these same 5 chords of sense pleasure in my future life. Or will others take over this property while you will have to pass on according to your karma? And the king says, I cannot have it thus of the life to come, Master Ratapala. On the contrary, others will take over this property while I shall have to pass on according to my actions. So we see in the Egyptian tombs, they put in all sorts of things into the, what do you call them? Sarcophagus, whatever those things are, so that they could take them with them to their next life. Yeah, all that stuff is here, and the anthropologists find it when they dig it up. None of it went to the next life. Yeah, in Chinese culture, now, you buy paper computers, paper cars, all these things, your banknotes from the Bank of Hell, and you burn them, and that's how you send those things on to your relatives in their future life. None of it reaches the relatives. Basically, what you have is more air pollution here and now. Okay. So it's quite interesting. you know, and yeah, you die, and then your family wants to get you the most expensive, beautiful coffin. Yeah, and they embalm you so that when people walk by, I heard this when one of my friends, when her mother died, people were saying, "I've never seen her look so good in the last few years." Because she was dying from Hodgkin's and was sick for many years. And then when she was lying it was an open-faced funeral, they said, I haven't seen her look so good in a long time. Amazing, yeah? Yeah, so they give you a nice thing. You know, now they're bringing back the remains of Korean war veterans, U.S. Korean war veterans from Korea, and they're landing, and, you know, they're getting the honor guard out there, and, I mean, it's a big thing. There's like hundreds of people on the tarmac greeting these ashes or these decomposed bones or whatever it is. Yeah, to honor the dead who fell during the Korean War. Yeah, those people are long gone. You know, what good does it do now? Yeah, what good does it do now? It makes the people alive feel better. It builds up the misconception that the military is, you know, a wonderful career, and to be a rough, tough Rambo kind of guy and kill the enemy is fantastic. It builds that up. Does it help the other people, the people who died? Does it matter to them whether the remains of their bodies stayed in Korea or got repatriated? Yeah. Okay. So, you know, none of this stuff goes on to the next life. Yeah. All of our trophies, all of our awards, all of our diplomas, yeah, then they stay here, and whoever has to go through our stuff and clean it out has to figure out what in the world to do with it. Yeah. My sister just moved out of because my parents died some years ago, and they finally sold the house and moved out of it. So she found a trophy that I had won in eighth grade, maybe 9th grade or 10th grade, for math, you know, giving the chalk talk. And they gave me a trophy and it had a little thing with wings on it, you know, that you're so, and I don't think it had my name on it. Did it have my name? It didn't have my name. But I got it, you know. So my sister sent it up here. Yeah. When they moved, she had to clean it out. You know, it's like, what a waste of postage. Just toss the thing. Yeah. And then they sent up my USC yearbooks. Yeah, did you ever succeed in selling those?
Chris came and took them, so he's going to be selling them. Sean, he had an idea of when to sell them for the market. So
okay, good. Yeah, yeah. Those weren't marked up, but you see, I went to USC at the same time OJ did. So I'm hoping those yearbooks are valuable. Yeah. Not because they were mine, but because half of the yearbook is about OJ, you know. And when we used to go to the football games, the only reason I went was because I liked this guy who invited me to go. I still don't understand football. But I would watch, and I didn't root for our team. I'm not into that. But you know what they shouted at the USC games? So when OJ was there as the quarterback?
everybody shouted, "Kill! Kill!" He wasn't a quarterback? You see, I told you I didn't understand football. What was he? He was a running back. Well, he was a back of some sort. Okay. Yeah, but everybody used to yell, "Kill! Kill!" And look what happened in his life. Okay. So, yeah. None of that stuff. And now you say pictures of OJ? I mean, he's an old man. I'm still young. I'm still like in my 20s. But he was 2 classes above me. I was a freshman when he was a junior. So he looks quite old now. Yeah? You've seen, when he's walking into the courtroom and all? Yeah. I never met him. Okay, so then Ratapala said, okay, great king, it was on account of this that the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened, said life in any world has nothing of its own. One has to leave all and pass on. And when I saw and when I knew and saw and heard this, I went forth from home life into homelessness. So Ratapala had some very good karma from previous lives. He also had some wisdom, that he was able to hear things and understand the truth. He was able to relate what the Buddha said to what he saw, and he didn't ignore the red flags. He paid attention to them. And the king again said, it's wonderful, Master Ratapala, that, how well this has been expressed by the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened. Life in any world has nothing of its own. One has to leave all and pass on. It is indeed so. Now, Master Ratapala said, life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, the slave of craving. How should the meaning of that statement be understood? And Ratapala says, what do you think, great king? Do you reign over the rich Kuru country? Yes, Master Ratapala, I do. What do you think, great king? Suppose a trustworthy and reliable man came to you from the east and said, please know, great king, that I have come from the east, and there I saw a large country, powerful and rich, very populous and crowded with people. There are plenty of elephant troops there, plenty of cavalry, chariot troops and infantry. There is plenty of ivory there, and plenty of gold coins and bullion, both unworked and worked, and plenty of women for wives. With your present forces, you can conquer it. Conquer it then, great king. What would you do? Somebody said that to you. And the king said, we would conquer it and reign over it, Master Ratapala. What do you think, great king? Suppose a trustworthy and reliable man came to you from the west and said that same thing. Came from the north, came from the south, and said, please know, great king, that I have come from the south, from the west, north, south, And there I saw a large country, powerful and rich with all this wealth and good things. What would you do? Yeah. Would you, and that person recommended to you, conquer it, great king. What would you do? And the king said again, we would conquer it too and reign over it, Master Ratapala. Ratapala said, great king, it was on account of this that the Blessed One, who knows and sees, accomplished and fully enlightened, said, life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, the slave of craving. And when I knew and saw and heard this, I went forth from the home life into homelessness.
So no matter how many kingdoms you conquer, and think of all the people who would get killed in the battle conquering each of those new kingdoms. Yeah. But no matter how many kingdoms you conquer and rule over and how big of a reputation you have, you're still dissatisfied, still feel incomplete. Great King, did I read that already? I've Alzheimer's, I can't remember. Great King, it was on account of this that the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened, said, life in any world is incomplete, insatiate, the slave of craving. And when I knew and saw and heard this, I went forth from home life into homelessness. The king said, it is wonderful, Master Ratapala, it is marvelous how that has been expressed by the Blessed One who knows and sees, accomplished and fully awakened. Life in any world is incomplete and insatiate, the slave of craving. It is indeed so. Okay, I'm going to keep reading so we finish the sutra. So that is what the Venerable Ratapala said. And having said that, he said further, I see men wealthy in the world, who yet from ignorance give not their gathered wealth. Greedily they hoard away their riches, longing still for more, for further sensual pleasures. A king who has conquered the earth by force and rules over the land and the ocean bounds is yet unsated with the seas near shore and hungers for its further shore as well. Most other people, too, not just a king, encounter death with craving unabated. With plans still incomplete, they leave the corpse. Desires remain unsated in the world. His relatives lament and rent their hair, crying, ah me, alas, our love is dead. They bear away the body wrapped in shrouds to place it on a pyre and burn it there. Clad in a shroud, he leaves his wealth behind. Prodded with stakes, he burns upon the pyre. And as he dies, no relatives or friends can offer him shelter and refuge there. While his heirs take over his wealth, this being must pass on according to his karma. And as he dies, nothing can follow him, not child, nor wife, nor wealth, nor royal estate. Longevity is not acquired with wealth, nor can prosperity banish old age. Short is this life, as all the sages say. Eternity it knows not, only change. The rich and poor alike shall feel death's touch. The fool and sage as well shall feed it too. But while the fool lies stricken by his folly, no sage would ever tremble at the touch. Better is wisdom here than any wealth, since by wisdom one gains the final goal. For people through ignorance do evil deeds, while failing to reach the goal from life to life. As one goes to the womb and the next world, renewing the successive rounds of rebirth, another of little wisdom, trusting him, goes also to the womb and the next world. Just as a robber caught in burglary is made to suffer for his evil deed, so people after death in the next world are made to suffer for their evil deeds. Sensual pleasures, varied, sweet, delightful, in many different ways disturb the mind. Seeing the danger in these sensual ties, I chose to lead the homeless life, O King. As fruits fall from the tree, so people too, both young and old, fall when this body breaks. Seeing this too, O King, I have gone forth. Better is the recluse's life assured. Okay, so from going forth purifying the mind, accumulating merit, hearing teachings, gaining understandings of those teachings, putting more and more seeds of virtue in the mind, then when death comes, that's what you take with you. And everything gets left behind, and that doesn't faze you in the least.